You've prayed the same prayer so many times that the words have lost their edges. You've asked God to take the feelings away, to make your heart lighter, quieter, easier to live with, but every morning they return like a tide that refuses to recede. You tell yourself you should be over it by now, that faith should have healed this ache, but somewhere beneath the logic and the guilt, something still trembles with longing. It isn't just nostalgia or sentimentality. It's love that won't go, even though it can't stay. Maybe you've wondered if it's punishment. Maybe you've told yourself that God is testing you, or worse, that He's forgotten to help you let go. But what if this lingering love is not evidence of divine neglect? What if it's divine attention? What if God, in His endless mercy, is letting this feeling remain not to torment you, but to teach you, to lead you somewhere you wouldn't have gone without it? This isn't a story about unrequited romance. It's about sacred purpose hidden inside human emotion. In the next few moments, we'll trace 7 quiet truths, threads of biblical wisdom, that show how even impossible love can become a meeting place with God. You'll see that the ache you want to escape might actually be the very altar where He's waiting to meet you, reshape you, and remind you of His heart. Number 1. Feelings can draw you closer to God. You try to pray the feelings away, but every time you close your eyes, their face reappears in the quiet, uninvited, unshakable. At first it feels like failure, like you're too weak to move on. Yet slowly, you begin to notice something else. Every time the ache rises, so does your prayer. The longing becomes a rhythm that keeps pulling you back to God's presence. It's as if your heart has found a secret door, one that only opens through need. David knew this rhythm. In Psalm 63:1 he wrote, "My soul thirsts for you, my flesh longs for you in a dry and weary land." He wasn't ashamed of the hunger. He brought it to God as worship. The same way your lingering love can become a psalm in motion, an ache that drives you to whisper His name when nothing else makes sense. You remember Paul's thorn in 2 Corinthians 12, how he begged God to remove it 3 times, only to hear, "My grace is sufficient for you." Maybe your feelings are that thorn, sharp enough to humble you, strong enough to keep you praying. If God had taken them instantly, would you still cry out as often? Would your dependence be this real? Every sigh that turns into prayer is sacred ground. Each tear that falls in the dark is seen by the one who uses even weakness to forge intimacy. Don't despise this place. The ache that feels like a wound might actually be the well from which your worship flows. When you can't stop thinking about someone, perhaps it's not obsession, it's invitation, a divine hand, steady and unseen, drawing you back into His arms until longing itself becomes the language of love. Number 2. Love reflects God's image. When God shaped you, He pressed His own fingerprints into your soul. Genesis 1:27 says, "You were made in His image, not only in form, but in feeling." That means your ability to love deeply isn't a flaw to fix, it's a reflection of His nature. The ache that burns inside you is evidence that the Creator's heart beats within yours. Think of it. God didn't design love to be small or convenient. His love is vast, risky, relentless. It moves toward pain instead of away from it. When you love someone you can't have, you are tasting a fragment of the divine, an echo of the love that led Jesus to weep outside Lazarus's tomb in John 11:35. He knew resurrection was moments away, yet He still let Himself feel every ounce of their grief. That is divine love, fully aware, yet fully willing to feel. Your lingering feelings are proof that you were made for something eternal. Culture tells you to harden your heart, to move on quickly. But Scripture whispers that love never fails. 1 Corinthians 13:8. That doesn't mean it always leads to romance. It means that genuine love, born from God's image, never loses its value in eternity. Even when it remains unresolved, it still carries the scent of heaven. When your love feels like a burden, remember, it's part of your design. God's love is stubbornly faithful, and because His likeness lives in you, your heart will sometimes hold on longer than logic approves. But don't shame that tenderness. Instead, let it remind you who made you, The same God who loves endlessly has given you a heart that mirrors his own, capable of depth, sacrifice, and compassion that outlasts circumstance. To feel this much isn't weakness, it's worship. Number 3. Feelings shape character. You might think the purpose of love is fulfillment, but God often uses it for formation. The emotions that won't fade aren't always about the person. They're about the person you're becoming. In God's hands, lingering love becomes a forge where character is shaped, layer by layer, through waiting, surrender, and trust. Look at Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, forgotten in prison, yet faithful through every disappointment. Or David, hunted by Saul, the very man he once honored. Both men carried wounds that could have turned to bitterness. Instead, they became men after God's heart. Their pain became soil, where humility, patience, and mercy took root. Your own heartache can grow those same seeds. Each time you resist bitterness, each time you choose prayer over pride, you are being refined. It's tempting to pray, "Lord, just take it away." But maybe God is whispering, "Let it make you holy first." Every moment you choose to love without being loved back, your faith is stretched, your endurance grows. This is where maturity is born, not in comfort, but in surrender. Romans 5:3-4 says, "Suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance produces character." Even Jesus loved through pain. He wept over Jerusalem, knowing it would reject him. He washed the feet of disciples who would abandon him hours later. That's what holy love looks like, steadfast even when unreciprocated. So instead of asking, "When will this end?" begin asking, "What are you forming in me, Lord?" Because love that costs you something transforms you. It softens what was once selfish. It strengthens what was once fragile. It opens your eyes to the quiet sorrows of others. Through this ache, you are learning to love like Christ, steadfast, surrendered, and strong enough to bless even while breaking. Number 4. Love teaches about God's heart. There's a mystery in how human love mirrors divine love. When you love someone who doesn't return it, or can't, you begin to glimpse how God feels about you, how he loves without guarantees, how he keeps reaching even when you wander. That ache in your chest isn't just emotional, it's theological. It's the echo of a God whose heart has always loved first, loved more, loved still. Think of Hosea. God asked him to love Gomer, a woman who would betray him, to show Israel how divine love refuses to quit. Hosea's heartbreak became a living sermon. Every time she left, every time he forgave, Hosea understood something deeper about God's relentless grace. When you love someone who can't love you back, you're standing on that same sacred ground. You're feeling, in a small way, the ache of the father who waits for his children to come home. This is why John 15:13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." It's not about dying once. It's about dying daily to selfishness, to the need to be repaid. Sometimes God allows your heart to stay open, because he's teaching you to love like him, patiently, sacrificially, without scoreboard or demand. And when you find yourself still praying for someone, still wishing them well even after they've walked away, realize this: you are learning divine empathy. You are feeling what he feels when he loves the world that barely looks up. The cost of love becomes the classroom of compassion. So yes, your feelings hurt, but they're also holy. They are the lesson and the language through which God reveals his own heart to yours. To love without certainty is to know, at last, how he loves you. Number 5. Timing belongs to God. You look at the clock, at the months that have slipped by, and wonder if time itself has forgotten you. You tell yourself that if the feelings were ever meant to fade, they should have by now. But God's timing doesn't tick to human rhythm. He isn't late, and he isn't withholding to be cruel. He is weaving something deliberate, one thread at a time, one lesson at a pace only eternity understands. Abraham and Sarah knew this waiting. They clung to a promise of life while their bodies whispered death. The years stretched, faith trembled, and still God said, "Wait." When the child finally came, it was not just the answer to prayer. It was the proof that divine timing had purpose. If it had happened sooner, they might have mistaken the gift for their own doing. But because it came in God's time, it bore His unmistakable signature. Maybe the same is true for your heart. The love that lingers may not be denied. It may be delayed until both hearts are healed, prepared, or redirected. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time, not your time, His." That's the hardest kind of trust, to let God hold the schedule. Sometimes the delay is mercy. If He gave you what you wanted right now, it might collapse under immaturity or unhealed wounds. God waits until both the gift and the receiver can sustain the weight of His blessing. So don't despise the waiting. Use it. Let patience do its holy work. Keep living. Keep growing. Keep trusting that what's meant for you will arrive dressed in peace, not striving. And when it does, you'll see that every unanswered prayer was really a preparation, every delay a doorway to something better than you dared to imagine. Number 6. True love isn't possession. You've been taught to measure love by what you can hold, by who stays, who chooses you, who calls you theirs. But God's kind of love doesn't cling that way. It opens its hands. It blesses without bargaining. It's patient enough to love without ownership. And that's what He may be teaching you now, that love, when purified, stops demanding and starts releasing. In 1 Corinthians 13, Paul describes love that is patient and kind, not self-seeking, not insisting on its own way. That isn't the language of control. It's the melody of freedom. True love doesn't trap another person under the weight of expectation. It rejoices in their good, even if that good unfolds far from your reach. Remember the story of Jesus and the rich young ruler in Mark 10:17-22. Jesus loved him deeply, but He still let him walk away. He didn't chase him down to convince or correct him. He loved him enough to honor his choice. That's divine love, full of truth, yet free of force. When God lets you keep loving someone you can't have, He may be asking you to learn this same sacred freedom, to see love not as possession, but as permission, to wish them joy even when it doesn't include you, to pray for their peace instead of your plans. It's not weakness to release, it's worship, because in the letting go, something shifts, the ache transforms. You begin to see that love isn't smaller, just because it isn't mutual. It's actually closer to God's own heart, strong enough to bless without condition, to hope without holding. This is the rarest kind of love, the kind that gives without taking, that honors without claiming, that releases because it trusts God to hold what you can't. Number 7. Love can be a call to intercession. Maybe the reason your heart won't forget isn't because you're failing to move on, it's because heaven hasn't told you to stop praying. Some loves aren't meant to be lived out through touch or conversation. They're meant to be carried in prayer. When God leaves someone on your heart, long after logic says you should let go, it may be because He's inviting you into intercession. Intercession is love on its knees. It's what Paul meant in Colossians 1:9 when he said, "We have not stopped praying for you." That's what happens when you love someone through prayer instead of presence. You become a quiet bridge between their life and God's mercy. Each time they cross your mind, it's an opportunity to whisper their name to the one who understands every need they haven't spoken aloud. You may never see the full fruit of those prayers. You might not know how your midnight tears or morning whispers protect them, soften their heart, or redirect their steps. But heaven records every one. God treasures the love that intercedes, because it mirrors Jesus, who still lives to make intercession for us. Romans 8:34. So if your feelings haven't faded, maybe they've been transformed into an assignment, not to convince or control, but to cover, to pray until God releases you, to stand in the gap until His work is complete. And when that day comes, you'll sense it, a peace that tells you your prayers have finished their course. Until then, hold this calling gently. The ache that drives you to pray is holy ground. You may think you're just missing someone. But in truth, you're partnering with God for their soul, and there's no higher love than that. Now take a breath. Let the noise settle, the memories drift like leaves on still water. You've walked through the ache and found that it wasn't emptiness after all. It was sacred space, shaped by the hands of a God who never wastes a feeling. The love that once felt like a chain is quietly becoming a bridge, carrying you closer to the one who understands every secret of the human heart. You don't have to force closure. You don't have to pretend you've stopped caring. God isn't asking you to erase what he may still be using. Just rest. Let him hold the outcome. What feels unresolved today is being woven into a story you'll one day recognize as grace. Maybe you'll see the person again, maybe not. Either way, the love remains safe in divine hands. Every tear, every prayer, every heartbeat has found its place in eternity's ledger. Trust that. Let the ache ease into peace, and let peace whisper back that you are loved too, completely, patiently, endlessly.